General Silas Graves was a man who didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in caliber, coordinates, and collateral damage. He was the iron fist of the Pentagon, a man who had stared down warlords and walked away from helicopter crashes without a scratch. But when a piece of rogue shrapnel threatened to sever his spine, he demanded only one thing: the absolute best surgeon the United States had to offer. He expected a grey-haired veteran. He expected a man. But when the operating theatre doors hissed open, the general's heart stopped cold. It wasn't just a doctor walking toward him. It was the woman he had left for dead in the dust of Kandahar 15 years ago, and she was holding a scalpel. The pain was not a sensation. It was a noise, a high-pitched, screaming frequency that lived at the base of General Silas Graves's neck. It had been there for 3 months, a reminder of a jagged piece of Soviet-era metal lodged millimeters from his spinal cord, a souvenir from a covert operation that officially never happened. Silas sat on the edge of the examination table at St. Matthew's Private Medical Center in D.C., his posture rigid. He was 55, carved from granite and scar tissue. He wore his civilian suit-like armor, but his eyes, steel gray and devoid of patience, scanned the room like a predator looking for a weakness. Across from him, the hospital administrator, Dr. Arthur Sterling, was sweating through his starch-collared shirt. Sterling was a capable man, a bureaucrat of medicine, but in the presence of a 4-star general who commanded the Joint Special Operations Command, he looked like a schoolboy caught cheating. "General, I must insist," Sterling stammered, adjusting his glasses. "Dr. Bannister is the head of neurosurgery. He has published 12 papers on spinal microresection. He is—" "I don't care if he invented the spine," Silas cut him off. His voice was a low rumble, like a tank idling in a garage. I looked at Bannister's file. He's got shaky hands when the pressure spikes. I saw the report on Senator Holloway's surgery. He nicked the dura mater. Barely. But he nicked it. Sterling went pale. That report was sealed. "General, that is privileged information." "I am the privilege, Arthur." Silas stood up. The movement caused a lightning bolt of agony to shoot down his left arm, but his face remained a mask. "I have a piece of metal migrating toward my C4 vertebrae. If it moves another millimeter, I'm a quadriplegic. If it moves 2, I'm dead. I don't want a man who writes papers. I want a mechanic. I want the person this hospital calls when the president gets shot. I want your ace." Sterling sighed, defeated. He walked over to the window, looking out at the rain-slicked streets of Georgetown. "We do have one other option, the chief of trauma. But she is unorthodox. She rarely takes elective cases. She deals with the wrecks, General. Gunshots, pile-ups, catastrophes. She's a ghost in the VIP wing." "Name?" Silas barked. "Dr. Hart," Sterling said quietly. "Evelyn Hart." Silas didn't react to the name. It sounded generic, soft. "Is she the best?" Sterling turned back, his expression serious. "She's not just the best, General. She's a legend. The residents call her the Valkyrie. She operates faster than anyone I've ever seen. But I have to warn you, she has 0 respect for rank. She kicked a congressman out of her OR last week because he wouldn't stop asking questions." Silas smirked. It was the first time he had looked amused in months. "Good, I don't need respect. I need steady hands. Get her." "She's in surgery right now," Sterling checked his watch. "A triple bypass on a car crash victim. She's been on her feet for 14 hours. Then she'll be warmed up." Silas buttoned his jacket. "Tell her General Graves is checking in. Tell her I'm not asking. It's a matter of national security." As Sterling hurried out of the room to make the call, Silas walked to the mirror. He pulled down the collar of his shirt, revealing the angry, puckered scar running up his trapezius. He touched it gingerly. He had lied to Sterling. He didn't just want the best. He was scared. For the first time since the ambush in the Korangal Valley, Silas Graves was terrified. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of ending up in a chair, powerless. He needed a savior. He had no idea that the savior Sterling was calling was the one ghost he had spent 15 years trying to drink away. The surgical wing of St. Matthew's was a different world from the plush administrative offices. It smelled of antiseptic and adrenaline. Dr. Evelyn Hart stripped off her bloody gloves and tossed them into the biohazard bin. She rolled her neck, hearing a satisfying pop. She was 42, though her eyes looked older. They were green, startlingly bright against her tired, pale skin, and framed by fine lines that came from squinting under harsh OR lights for 2 decades. "Nice work on the bleeder, Dr. Hart," a young resident, Dr. Levi, said, looking at her with sheer hero worship. "I've never seen anyone suture a descending aorta that fast." Evelyn didn't smile. She just nodded, untying her mask. Her blonde hair was hidden under a navy blue scrub cap, patterned with little sharks. It was the only joke she allowed herself at work. "He's not out of the woods, Levi. Watch his outputs. If his pressure drops below 90, you page me. Don't text, page. Yes, ma'am." She pushed through the swinging doors, looking forward to exactly 10 minutes of silence and a stale coffee in the break room. But before she could reach the sanctuary of the lounge, Dr. Sterling intercepted her. He looked flushed. "Evelyn," he said, breathless. "Arthur." She kept walking. "If this is about the budget meeting, I'm not going. I have a patient in the ICU who needs monitoring." "It's not the budget. It's a patient. A VIP." Evelyn stopped and turned, her expression hardening. "I don't do VIPs, Arthur. You know that. I fix broken people, not egos. Give it to Bannister. He loves the senators." "Bannister is out." Sterling lowered his voice. "The patient specifically rejected him. He demanded you. Or, well, he demanded the best, and that's you." Evelyn scoffed. "Flattery won't work. Who is it? Hollywood star? Tech mogul?" "Military," Sterling said. "General Silas Graves, 4-star JSOC commander." The world tilted. Evelyn stood very still. The hallway noise, the beeping monitors, the squeak of rubber shoes on linoleum seemed to drop away, leaving a rushing sound in her ears like wind over a desert canyon. Silas. She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in years. She whispered it to herself in nightmares, but never in the daylight. "Whoa, Evelyn?" Sterling stepped closer, concerned. "You went white. Do you know him?" Evelyn blinked, forcing the steel shutters down over her memories. She was a surgeon now, not a frightened 24-year-old nurse in a dusty medical tent covered in blood and sand. She was Dr. Hart. "No," she lied. Her voice was steady, betraying nothing. "I don't know him." "What's the case?" "Shrapnel, C4-C5 vertebrae proximity, unstable. He's in pre-op 4. "Send me his scans," Evelyn said, turning back towards the scrub room. "And Arthur, tell the general to prep for a spinal block. I don't want him awake. He actually refused sedation for the prep. He wants to meet the surgeon first." "Of course he does," Evelyn muttered. 20 minutes later, Evelyn stood outside the door of pre-op 4. She had viewed the scans. The metal was jagged, nasty. It was a miracle he was walking. It was a bigger miracle he was alive. But then again, Silas Graves had always been too stubborn to die. She took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the door handle. She wore fresh scrubs, her face covered by a mask, her hair completely hidden by her cap. Only her eyes were visible. "He won't recognize me," she told herself. "I was a kid then. I'm a different person now." She pushed the door open. The room was dim. General Silas Graves was sitting on the edge of the bed, shirtless, his back to the door. His back was a map of violence, scars from bullets, burns, and knives. But her eyes went instantly to the tattoo on his right shoulder blade, a black hawk holding a lightning bolt. "General Graves," she said, pitching her voice professionally low. "I'm Dr. Hart." Silas didn't turn immediately. He finished buttoning his shirt, wincing slightly. "Dr. Hart, Sterling tells me you're the only one in this city who can cut straight." He turned around. The air left the room. Silas looked older. His hair was silver at the temples, and there was a deep, jagged scar running down his cheek that hadn't been there 15 years ago. But the eyes, those cold, intelligent, piercing grey eyes, were exactly the same. He looked at her. He saw a doctor in blue scrubs. He saw the mask. He saw the professional stance. "I've reviewed your scans, General," Evelyn said, walking to the light board, keeping her distance. She needed to keep this clinical. If she looked at him too long, she would break. "The fragment is precarious. We need to go in posteriorly. It's high risk." "I know the risks," Silas said, watching her. He frowned slightly. Something about her voice. It scratched at a door in the back of his mind. "Doctor, take off the mask." Evelyn froze. "That's against protocol in a sterile prep area, General." "We aren't in surgery yet." Silas stood up. He towered over the room. He took a step toward her. "I like to see the face of the person holding a knife to my spine. Take it off." Evelyn gripped the chart in her hand. She could refuse. She could walk out. But she was the chief of trauma. She didn't run. Slowly she reached up. She untied the top string, then the bottom. The mask fell away. Silas stopped dead. He stared at her face. He looked at the small scar on her chin, a scar she got from a tent pole collapsing during a mortar attack in the Panjwai district. He looked at those green eyes. The color drained from the general's face, leaving him looking more terrified than he had ever looked on a battlefield. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He staggered back a step, hitting the bed rail. "Evie?" he whispered. The word came out like a strangled prayer. "Evie, you're dead!" Evelyn didn't flinch. She stared right back at him, her eyes burning with 15 years of unresolved anger and hidden grief. "Hello, Captain," she said, using his old rank. "You're late for your checkup." Silas reached out a trembling hand, as if to touch a ghost. "I saw the chopper go down. I saw it burn. There were no survivors. I wrote the letter to your parents." "You wrote a letter?" Evelyn laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "That's funny, Silas, because while you were writing letters, I was crawling 3 miles through hostile territory with a broken leg, waiting for a retrieval team that never came." The silence in the room was heavy enough to crush bones. "I didn't know," Silas said, his voice cracking. The Iron General was gone. "Evie, I swear to God, I didn't know." "It doesn't matter what you knew." Evelyn turned back to the light board, snapping the X-ray into place with a loud thwack. "What matters is that piece of metal in your neck, and right now, I'm the only person on Earth who can take it out without killing you. So, General, do you want to talk about the past, or do you want to live to see tomorrow?" Silas stared at her, his chest heaving. The woman he had loved, the woman whose memory had haunted every drink he'd taken for a decade and a half, was standing there, holding his life in her hands. "Save me," he whispered. "Again." Evelyn hit the intercom button on the wall. "Pre-op to OR1. We're coming in. Prep the general." She looked back at him, her eyes cold as ice. "Get on the gurney, Silas, and don't speak to me. Once we cross that threshold, you aren't a general. You're just a body, and I'm the surgeon." The operating theatre was a cathedral of cold blue light. The hum of the ventilation system and the rhythmic beep, beep, beep of the cardiac monitor were the only sounds allowed. General Silas Graves lay face down on the operating table, his head secured in a Mayfield clamp, his body draped in sterile blue sheets. The only part of him visible was a 6-inch square of skin at the base of his neck, painted orange with iodine. Dr. Evelyn Hart stood over him, her hands gloved and raised. She took a breath, letting the familiar calm of the surgery wash over her. This was her domain. Here she wasn't the heartbroken girl left in the desert. She was a god of physiology. "Scalpel," she said. Dr. Levy placed the instrument in her hand. "Time of incision, 14:02, Evelyn announced. She pressed the blade to the skin. A thin line of red appeared. Bipolar cautery. As the smell of cauterized flesh drifted up, a smell that usually meant nothing to her, Evelyn's hand faltered for a fraction of a second. The scent triggered a violent sensory flashback. Kandahar, 2009. The smell was burning rubber and copper blood. The Black Hawk was on its side, rotor blades twisted like pretzels. Evelyn was dragging a corporal named Miller out of the wreckage. Her leg was broken, the tibia snapping under the weight, but the adrenaline was a narcotic. She couldn't feel the pain yet. She had screamed into her radio, "Dust off! We need dust off! Location grid 44 Alpha!" Static. Just static. She had looked up at the ridgeline. She saw the extraction team's chopper circling. She saw it bank away. They were leaving. The Taliban fighters were closing in, their muzzle flashes sparking in the twilight. Silas was on that extraction bird. She knew it. He was the command element. And he was flying away. "Dr. Hart?" Levi's voice cut through the memory. "You're hovering." Evelyn blinked. She was back in the OR. "Retractors," she snapped, her voice harsher than intended. "Let's get deeper. I want a clear view of the lamina." She worked with mechanical precision, dissecting the muscle layers away from the spine. But the anger was bubbling up, hot and toxic. Every layer she cut through felt like she was peeling back the years of silence. "Why did you leave me?" she thought, staring at the exposed bone of the man who had promised to marry her. "I waited 3 days in that cave. I drank muddy water. I killed a man with a rock to keep him from finding Miller. And you went home to a promotion." "Microscope," she ordered. The nurse wheeled the massive surgical microscope into place. Evelyn peered through the eyepieces. The surgical field was magnified 40 times. There it was, the foreign body. It wasn't just a jagged piece of metal. It was lodged dangerously close to the vertebral artery. One wrong slip, and Silas would stroke out on the table. "It's adhered to the dura," Evelyn murmured, her focus narrowing to a pinpoint. "Diamond drill." For the next 2 hours, the room was silent. Evelyn worked with the grace of a concert pianist. She drilled away the bone covering the spinal cord, creating a window. She teased the scar tissue away from the metal. It was intimate. She was touching the very core of his nervous system. She held his life, his ability to walk, his ability to breathe in the tips of her forceps. It would be so easy to make a mistake, a complication. No one would question it. The surgery was high risk, but Evelyn Hart was a hero nurse. She didn't kill. She fixed. "I'm at the interface," she said, sweat beading on her brow despite the cool air. "Levi, suction. Don't touch the cord." She gripped the shard of metal with the pituitary rongeurs. She rocked it gently. It moved. "Coming out," she whispered. With a wet squelch, the metal slid free. Evelyn exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. "Check motor-evoked potentials. Signals are strong," the neurologist monitoring the nerves reported. "No change, he's fine." Evelyn dropped the piece of metal into a metal kidney dish. Clang. She looked at it. Under the bright OR lights, the shrapnel looked strange. Usually bomb fragments are irregular, rusted iron. This piece was shiny, titanium alloy, and it had a partial serial number etched into the side. KUSLT. Evelyn frowned. This wasn't enemy shrapnel. This was American, high-grade aerospace titanium. "Dr. Levi, close," Evelyn said, stepping back from the table. She stripped off her gloves, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "I want that foreign body sent to pathology, but I want it flagged for my personal retrieval. Do not throw it away." "Yes, doctor." Evelyn walked out of the OR, ripping her mask off. She gasped for air. She had saved him. The general would walk. The general would live. Now she was going to make him answer for the last 15 years. The recovery room, PACU, was dimly lit, a stark contrast to the blinding brightness of the OR. General Silas Graves was slowly surfacing from the heavy anesthesia. His first sensation was the absence of the noise. The screaming pain in his neck was gone, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache and the heavy fog of painkillers. He blinked, his eyelashes fluttering. "Water," he croaked. A straw was guided to his lips. He drank greedily. "Easy, General. You'll make yourself sick." The voice. It was raspy, tired, and familiar. Silas forced his eyes open. His vision swam, then focused. Evelyn was sitting in a chair beside his bed. She wasn't wearing scrubs anymore. She was in a white coat, her arms crossed, looking at him with an expression that was impossible to read. It wasn't hate, exactly. It was something colder. Judgment. "Evie," he whispered. He tried to sit up, but a firm hand pushed his shoulder back down. "Don't move," she ordered. "You have a drain in your neck and 20 staples holding your skin together. You stay flat." Silas lay back, staring at the ceiling tiles. "You did it." "I did," she said. "I removed a 4mm shard of titanium from your C4 laminar space. You're lucky. Another week, and it would have severed the nerve root." "Thank you." "I didn't do it for you," Evelyn said sharply. "I took an oath. Do no harm. Even if the patient is a coward." Silas flinched. The word hit him harder than a bullet. "Coward? What else do you call a man who leaves his team behind?" Evelyn stood up, pacing the small curtained area. "I saw your chopper, Silas. I saw you bank west. We were south. You flew away. I was ordered to abort." Silas's voice rose, rough and weak. "We took RPG fire. The pilot, Jenkins. He took a round through the canopy. We were losing hydraulic pressure. Command ordered an immediate RTB. Return to base." "And you just listened?" Evelyn challenged. "The Silas I knew didn't listen to orders when his people were on the ground." "I fought the pilot for the stick," Silas said, his eyes wet. "I tried to turn us around. We crashed 3 miles out. I broke my back, Evie. That's where the shrapnel came from. It wasn't from a Soviet grenade. It was from our own crash." Evelyn stopped pacing. She looked at him, really looked at him. "You crashed? We went down hard. I was in a coma in Germany for 2 weeks. When I woke up, Colonel Vance, he was the debriefing officer, he told me the Predator drone saw thermal signatures of the crash site where you were. He said there were no survivors. He said the heat signatures went cold." Silas reached out, his hand trembling, searching for hers. She didn't take it, but she didn't pull away either. "I spent 6 months fighting the Board of Inquiry," Silas continued, his voice breaking. "I tried to get a search team authorized to go back for bodies. They denied it, said it was too hot a zone. They told me you were vaporized, Evie. I mourned you, every single day for 15 years. I never married. I never had kids, because they weren't you." Evelyn felt the wall around her heart developing a crack. His story tracked. The crash explained the back injury. It explained why he never came. But something didn't fit. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small plastic specimen bag. Inside was the piece of shiny metal she had pulled from his neck. "You said you crashed 3 miles out?" she asked. "Yes." "And you were told we were all killed by enemy fire?" "Yes. An RPG hit the fuel tank. That was the official report." Evelyn held the bag up to the light. "Silas, look at this. This came out of your neck." Silas squinted at the metal. "It's titanium," Evelyn said, "from the fuselage of a Black Hawk. But look at the edge. It's not jagged from an impact shatter. It's melted, fused." So, Evelyn lowered her voice to a whisper, glancing at the nurse's station outside the curtain. "Titanium has a melting point of over 3,000 degrees. Jet fuel burns at 1,500. A normal crash doesn't melt titanium like this. Only one thing does." Silas stared at her, the fog of drugs clearing instantly as the soldier in him took over. "Thermite." "Exactly," Evelyn said grimly. "And the serial number on this piece? It matches the batch used for prototype stealth modification. Classified tech." She leaned in close to his face. "Silas, your chopper didn't just crash because of hydraulic failure, and my team wasn't killed by an RPG. Someone used a thermal charge to bring you down, and someone made sure no one came looking for me because they didn't want witnesses." Silas's face went hard as stone. The pain in his eyes was replaced by a cold, lethal fury. "Vance," he growled. "Colonel Vance wrote the report." "Who is Vance now?" Evelyn asked. "He's not a colonel anymore," Silas said darkly. "He's the Secretary of Defense." Suddenly the reunion wasn't just about lost love. It was about survival. Evelyn had just pulled the evidence of a 15-year-old assassination attempt out of the general's neck. And if the wrong people found out that General Graves was alive, and that doctor, Hart, the witness, was standing right next to him, the hospital wasn't going to be safe for long. "We have a problem," Silas said, trying to sit up again. This time Evelyn helped him. "You think?" she said. Just then the curtain swept back. Dr. Sterling stood there, smiling nervously. Behind him stood two men in dark suits with earpieces. They didn't look like hospital security. "General," Sterling said, his voice trembling slightly, "these gentlemen are from the Pentagon. They're here to transfer you to Walter Reed immediately. They said it's standard protocol." Silas looked at Evelyn. Evelyn looked at the men. One of them was staring at the plastic bag in her hand. "I'm not going anywhere," Silas said, his voice finding its old command. "I'm afraid," the taller suit said, stepping forward, his hand drifting toward his jacket pocket. "That isn't a request, General, and we'll be taking all surgical debris for classified disposal, including what the doctor is holding." Evelyn's grip on the bag tightened. The war hadn't ended in Kandahar. It had just moved to D.C., the air in the recovery room curdled with tension. The tall man in the suit, Agent Kincaid, according to the lanyard he hadn't bothered to display, was staring at Evelyn's hand. Specifically, at the plastic bag containing the twisted titanium shard. "Give me the bag, Dr. Hart," Kincaid said, his voice smooth and devoid of humanity, "and we will forget that you handled classified material." Silas tried to swing his legs off the bed, but a wave of dizziness slammed him back against the pillows. His neck felt like it was on fire. He was helpless. The most dangerous man in the U.S. military was currently unable to lift his head without assistance. "Evelyn," Silas gritted out, "don't give it to him." "Quiet, General," the second agent snapped, stepping closer to the bed. He reached into his jacket, and the metallic glint of a suppressed pistol was visible for a fraction of a second. "Doctor." Sterling, the administrator, looked like he was about to faint. "Gentlemen, please, this is a hospital. You can't bring weapons in here." "Shut up, Arthur," Kincaid said without looking at him. He took a step toward Evelyn. "Last chance, Doctor." Evelyn looked at the shard in her hand. Then she looked at Silas. She saw the desperation in his eyes, not for himself, but for her. If she gave up the evidence, they were both dead. If she didn't, they were probably dead anyway, unless she did what she did best, act fast in a crisis. Her hand dropped to the crash cart beside the bed, her fingers curled around a pre-loaded syringe of succinylcholine, a powerful paralytic used for intubation. "Okay," Evelyn said, her voice shaking feigningly. "Okay, take it. I don't want trouble." She held out the bag with her left hand. Kincaid smirked. "Smart girl." He reached for it. As his fingers touched the plastic, Evelyn lunged. She didn't pull away. She stepped into his space. With her right hand, she jammed the needle into the side of Kincaid's neck and depressed the plunger. Kincaid's eyes went wide. He tried to speak, but the drug worked in seconds. His diaphragm froze. His knees buckled. He collapsed silently to the linoleum, gasping for air that wouldn't come. "What the?" The second agent spun around, drawing his weapon. "Code Blue!" Evelyn screamed, slamming her hand onto the wall-mounted emergency alarm. "Code Blue! PACU Bed 4!" Instantly the hospital erupted. Sirens blared. Blue lights flashed. The doors to the recovery room burst open as a team of 6 nurses and residents rushed in with a crash cart, blocking the second agent's line of sight. "He's arresting!" Evelyn shouted, pointing at Kincaid on the floor. "Start bagging him! Someone get an airway. The medical team swarmed the fallen agent, assuming he was a patient. The second agent was shoved aside by a burly male nurse. "Get back, sir! Give us room! Move!" Evelyn whispered to Silas. She unlocked the wheels of his gurney. While the second agent was fighting through the wall of medical staff, trying to save his partner, Evelyn shoved the gurney backward, through the swinging doors and into the service corridor. "Hold on," she grunted, putting her weight into the sprint. "You paralyzed him," Silas wheezed, a pained grin spreading across his face as the ceiling tiles whipped by above him. "You're dangerous." "I intubated him," Evelyn corrected, taking a sharp left towards the freight elevators. "He'll live, but he won't be chasing us for 20 minutes. She slammed the down button. The doors groaned open. She pushed the gurney inside and hit the button for the sub-basement, the morgue and laundry. "Where are we going?" Silas asked, his hand instinctively going to his neck to protect the incision. "My car is in the physician's lot, but they'll be watching the exits," Evelyn said, her mind racing. "We're taking the laundry truck. It leaves at 16 o'clock. That's in 4 minutes." The elevator dinged. The basement smelled of bleach and formaldehyde. Evelyn grabbed a stack of dirty linens from a cart and threw them over Silas, covering his face and body. "Stay still," she hissed. "You're just a pile of sheets." She pushed the gurney out onto the loading dock. The massive laundry truck was idling. The driver, a man named Stan she had known for 10 years, was checking his clipboard. "Hey, Stan," Evelyn called out, trying to sound casual despite her heart hammering against her ribs. "Maintenance needs this cart sent out for deep cleaning. Infectious protocol. Can you toss it in the back?" Stan looked at the lump under the sheets. "Heavy load, Doc?" "Very. Just shove the whole gurney in. I'll sign for it." Stan shrugged. He lowered the lift gate. Evelyn pushed Silas onto the metal platform. As the lift rose, she hopped up beside him. "I need to check the inventory in the back," she said. "I'll ride with you to the depot." "Against regulations, Doc," Stan said, climbing into the cab. "I'll write you a prescription for that back pain you've been complaining about," Evelyn countered. Stan grinned. "Hop in." The engine roared. The truck lurched forward. Evelyn pulled the sheet off Silas's face. He was pale, sweating profusely, but alive. "We're out," she whispered, collapsing onto the metal floor of the truck beside him. "We're actually out." Silas looked at her. In the dim light of the cargo hold, amidst bags of dirty hospital scrubs, he reached out and took her hand. This time she squeezed back. The drive took an hour. Evelyn had Stan drop them off at a secondary distribution center where she stole a delivery van. It wasn't her proudest moment, but national security superseded grand theft auto. They drove north, out of the city, watching the DC skyline fade in the rear-view mirror. Silas directed her to a location he hadn't visited in years, a hunting cabin in the Shenandoah Valley, owned by an old sergeant major who had passed away 2 years ago. It was off the grid. No internet, no smart meters, no way to be tracked. By the time they arrived, night had fallen. The cabin was cold and smelled of pine and dust. Evelyn helped Silas inside. He was barely conscious, his body fighting the trauma of surgery and the stress of the escape. She got a fire going in the wood stove and helped him onto a dusty leather couch. "I need to check your dressing," she said, her voice soft. She turned on a battery-powered lantern. She peeled back the bandage on his neck. The incision was angry and red, but the stitches were holding. She cleaned it with a bottle of vodka from the cupboard and fresh gauze from the first aid kit she kept in her bag. "It hurts," Silas murmured, wincing. "It's supposed to," Evelyn said. "You had a drill in your spine 6 hours ago." She sat back on her heels, looking at him. The firelight danced across his scarred face. The silence of the woods was heavy around them. "Talk to me, Silas," she said. "Why does the Secretary of Defense want you dead? Why did he try to kill you 15 years ago?" Silas stared into the fire. He took a long pull from the vodka bottle. "It was never about the Taliban," he began, his voice raspy. "In 2009, my unit, we stumbled onto something in the Korangal. We thought we were tracking a high-value target. Instead, we found a meeting. A meeting? Between a local warlord and a CIA contractor. They weren't fighting. They were trading. Heroin for Stinger missiles. American missiles," Evelyn gasped. "Creating their own enemy to keep the war funding going?" "Bigger," Silas shook his head. "They were using the chaos to smuggle rare earth minerals out of the mountains. Lithium, trillions of dollars worth. Vance was the CIA handler back then. He was running the whole operation off the books. Project Blackbird." Silas looked at Evelyn, his eyes full of regret. "I radioed it in. I thought I was calling command. I didn't know Vance was listening. He ordered the extraction immediately. He wanted me on that chopper so he could blow it out of the sky and blame the insurgents. He wanted to wipe out the whole unit. Me, Jenkins, and you." Evelyn felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold cabin. "So my unit, the nurses, the guards, we were just collateral damage to cover up a theft?" "Yes," Silas whispered. "When I woke up in Germany, Vance came to see me. He told me everyone was dead. He threatened me. He said if I ever spoke about what I saw, he'd find my family. But I didn't have any family left. Except you. And he told me you were gone." Silas leaned forward, wincing. "I stayed in the military because it was the only place I could hide." I rose through the ranks, waiting for a chance to take him down, but he always stayed one step ahead. Then, 3 months ago, I found the flight logs, the original, unaltered logs from that night. I was going to the Senate. And that's when the shrapnel started moving, Evelyn realized. "I think he poisoned me," Silas said, "or triggered something. I don't know how, but he knew I was getting close. He needed me to die on an operating table so it looked like natural causes, a surgical complication." Evelyn stood up, her fists clenched. The anger she had felt for 15 years, the anger at being abandoned, transmuted into a white-hot rage at the man who had stolen their lives. "He expected Dr. Bannister to operate," Evelyn said. "Bannister is a political climber. Vance probably got to him. A little slip of the scalpel, and General Graves is a tragic hero who died of his wounds. But I asked for you." Silas looked at her, a fierce pride in his eyes. "I didn't know it was you, Evie. I just asked for the one person who wouldn't be bought. The one person who couldn't be bullied." Evelyn walked to the window, looking out into the dark woods. "We have the shard. We have the serial number. That proves the sabotage. It's not enough," Silas said. "Vance owns the Pentagon. He owns the press. If we walk into a police station, we won't make it to the booking desk." "So what do we do?" Evelyn asked, turning back to him. Silas's eyes were heavy, but the steel was back. "We don't go to the police. We go to war." "You can't even walk straight," Evelyn pointed out. "And I'm a surgeon, not a soldier." "You're better than a soldier," Silas said. "You kept yourself alive in hostile territory for 3 days with a broken leg. You just took down a federal agent with a syringe. You're the force multiplier, Evie." He pointed to his jacket, draped over a chair. "Look in the inside pocket." Evelyn reached in and pulled out a small, ruggedized satellite phone. "Who are we calling?" she asked. "There are 3 men left from my old unit who aren't on Vance's payroll," Silas said. "They think I'm crazy. They think I'm paranoid. But when they hear your voice, the voice of the ghost from Kandahar, they'll believe." Evelyn held the phone. It felt heavy. One call, and there was no going back. She looked at Silas, the man she had loved, lost, and saved. "Make the call," she said. Silas took the phone. He dialed a number from memory. He put it on speaker. It rang once, twice. Then a gruff voice answered. "This line is dead, Graves. Stop calling." "It's not Graves," Evelyn spoke up, her voice clear and strong. "This is Lieutenant Evelyn Hart, 44th Medical Brigade, grid reference 44 Alpha. I'm the one you left behind." There was a long silence on the other end. "That's impossible," the voice whispered. "Hart is dead." "I was," Evelyn said, "but the general just woke me up, and we need a extraction." The Senate Armed Services Committee hearing was a theater of the mundane. The room was mahogany and marble, filled with the soft murmur of aides and the rhythmic clicking of cameras. At the center of the long table sat Secretary of Defense Thomas Vance. He looked impeccable. A flag pin on his lapel, his hair perfectly coiffed, his expression one of somber duty. He was currently answering questions about the defense budget, but everyone knew the real story was the rumor circulating about General Silas Graves. "Mr. Secretary," Senator Holloway leaned into his microphone, "we are hearing disturbing reports regarding the disappearance of General Graves from St. Matthew's Hospital. Is it true that he is missing?" Vance adjusted his glasses, offering a practiced, mournful sigh. "Senator, it is with a heavy heart that I must address this. General Graves was a patriot, but he was also a man in severe physical and mental decline. We believe the general suffered a psychotic break following a high-risk surgery. He fled the hospital. We have teams searching for him, but given his condition, we are preparing for the worst." The room buzzed. Vance had successfully painted the narrative. The hero had gone mad. Any accusations Silas made now would be dismissed as the ravings of a brain-damaged invalid. "We are doing everything we can to bring him home," Vance continued, his voice thick with fake emotion. "I served with Silas. He was like a brother to me." Bam! The heavy oak doors at the back of the chamber swung open with a force that rattled the hinges. The room went silent. General Silas Graves stood in the doorway. He was leaning heavily on a cane, wearing a civilian suit that hung loosely on his frame. He looked pale, gaunt, and in pain. But he was standing, and he was wearing his full dress uniform jacket over a white t-shirt, a violation of protocol that somehow made him look even more imposing. Flanking him were 4 men, big men with beards and eyes that scanned the room for threats. They were the remnants of the unit Vance thought he had killed. Ghost Squad. "General Graves," Senator Holloway stood up, stunned. "Mr. Chairman," Silas's voice was gravel, but it carried to the back of the room without a microphone. "I apologize for the tardiness. I had some trouble with the traffic coming from the grave." Vance's face went the color of curdled milk. He gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. "Silas," he stammered, his microphone picking up the tremor in his voice. We were told you were crazy." Silas limped down the center aisle, the rhythmic thump step of his cane echoing in the silence. "That's the narrative, isn't it, Thomas? That the shrapnel in my neck made me lose my mind." "General, you need medical attention," Vance signaled to the security detail. "Officers, please assist the general. He is unwell." 2 Capitol police officers stepped forward, unsure. "Stand down!" The voice rang out clear and sharp, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. From behind the wall of the 4 commando bodyguards, a woman stepped forward. She wore a simple black dress, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. She held a thick medical file in one hand and a clear evidence bag in the other. Vance stared at her. He blinked, rubbing his eyes as if he were seeing an apparition. "Who is this?" Senator Holloway asked. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Hart," she said, walking to the witness table and placing the evidence bag directly in front of the senator. "I am the chief of trauma surgery at St. Matthew S., and 15 years ago I was Lieutenant Evelyn Hart, the triage nurse at Grid 44 Alpha in the Korangol Valley." The press gallery exploded. Shutters clicked furiously. Reporters began shouting questions. "Order! Order!" Holloway banged his gavel. He looked at Evelyn. "Dr. Hart, you are not on the witness list." "No, sir," Evelyn said, her voice steady. "I'm legally dead." Secretary Vance signed my death certificate himself in 2009. She turned to face Vance. The secretary was frozen, trapped in the glare of the television lights. "Tell them, Thomas," Evelyn challenged him. "Tell them how you ordered the extraction chopper to leave 30 American soldiers on the ground. Tell them how you used a thermite charge to bring down the general's Black Hawk so there would be no witnesses to your meeting with the warlords." "This is preposterous," Vance shouted, standing up. "She is lying. She is an imposter. Security, remove her." "Sit down, Mr. Secretary," Holloway roared. He looked at the evidence bag. "What is this, Doctor?" "That," Evelyn pointed to the bag, "is a fragment of titanium alloy I removed from General Graves's spine yesterday. It contains a partial serial number matching the prototype stealth fuselage used in Project Blackbird, and its edges are fused by heat exceeding 3,000 degrees. She paused, looking directly into the camera lens, knowing the world was watching. "Standard aviation fuel burns at 1,500 degrees, Senator. This metal was melted by military-grade thermite. The general didn't crash. He was shot down from the inside." Silas stepped up beside her. He looked at his old friend, his old enemy. "It's over, Tom. We have the flight logs. We have the surviving squad members outside. And we have the doctor who you left to die in the dirt." Vance looked around the room. He saw the senators whispering. He saw the press typing furiously. He saw the Capitol police officers backing away from him, their hands hovering near their belts. The arrogance drained out of him, leaving a small, terrified man in an expensive suit. He sank back into his chair, burying his face in his hands. "I was just following orders," Vance whispered, the oldest excuse in the book. "No," Silas said, placing a hand on Evelyn's shoulder. "You were following greed." Senator Holloway leaned into his mic. "Sergeant-at-Arms, please escort the secretary to a holding room. I believe the FBI will have some questions. General Graves, Dr. Hart, please take a seat. We have a lot to discuss." 3 months later. The sun was setting over the Potomac River. The air was crisp, smelling of autumn leaves and water. Evelyn sat on a park bench, watching the scullers rowing down the river. She wore a heavy wool coat and a scarf. For the first time in 15 years, she didn't feel the phantom weight of the desert heat on her skin. She heard the familiar limp approaching. Silas sat down next to her. He wasn't using the cane as much anymore, though he still moved stiffly. The surgery had been a success, and without the stress of the poison Vance had been administering, his body was healing. "They indicted him today," Silas said quietly. "Treason, conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement. He's going away for life." "Good," Evelyn said. She didn't feel triumph, just relief. The ghost was finally laid to rest. "Sterling offered me a job," Silas said, looking at the water. "Head of security for the hospital system. Said he feels safer with me around." Evelyn laughed softly. "Arthur is terrified of you. He probably thinks you'll rappel down the elevator shaft if he denies a budget request." "I might," Silas smirked. He turned to look at her. His grey eyes were warm now. The ice melted away. "What about you, Evie? Are you staying at St. Matthew's, Hess?" Evelyn took a deep breath. "I don't know. I've been running on adrenaline for so long. Saving people because I couldn't save myself. I think I might take a sabbatical. Go somewhere quiet. Maybe teach." "I have a cabin," Silas said, a little tentatively. "In the Shenandoah. It's quiet. The roof leaks a little, and the stove is temperamental. But the view is nice." Evelyn looked at him. She saw the lines on his face, the history they shared. They were two broken things that had managed to fit back together. "Does it have a coffee maker?" she asked. "I'll buy one," Silas promised. Evelyn smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes completely. She reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "Then I guess I'm coming with you, General." Silas squeezed her hand. "At ease, Doctor. We're off duty." They sat there as the sun dipped below the horizon, two soldiers who had finally found their way home. And that is the incredible story of General Silas Graves and Dr. Evelyn Hart, From the dusty battlefields of Kandahar to the high-stakes operating rooms of DT, they proved that the strongest bonds are forged in fire, and that sometimes the only way to heal the future is to confront the past. It's a reminder that true heroes don't wear capes. They wear scrubs, dog tags, and the scars of their survival. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets us know you want more military dramas like this one. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a upload. And tell me in the comments, do you think General Graves should have forgiven Vance, or did he get exactly what he deserved? I'll be reading your replies below. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.